and Amanda.
And welcome to the Gowns and Crowns podcast, where we will talk all things pageantry. Today we're going to cover
Pageant pet peeves.
no matter what industry you're in, we always know that there's those nitpicky little things that bother people. The pageant business is no different. So today we've made a list of things that we think stand out. In the pageant business, because everything is kind of about aesthetics, you can do 1,000 things right and do one thing wrong, and it's just a glaring mark on your report card. And it does. So also, we're going to, down the road, maybe do other podcast where we talk about pet peeves, and we will invite you, the audience, to email us your pet peeves in pageantry, and maybe one of your suggestions will end up right here on the show. But I think we're going to start with today. What is one that stands out to you, Amanda?
So one thing that you've always taught me to do is stick to the plan. So you come to class for months and you prepare. Then when you get to the pageant, you either get in your own head because you're looking around at all the other girls, which you know I've done.
Right.
Texted you, said, please, what do I do? What do I do? You know better, stick to the plan. You either get backstage and you see all of these girls around you and you immediately start comparing yourself to them and thinking, well, do I need to change my hair? Do I need to change my dress? Do I need to change my shoes? Do I need to change the way that I walk? Or another one of my favorites, which has happened to me, is where someone who barely even knows you comes up to you when you've got a break during rehearsal and says, you know what? I think you're looking at the judges too much. You should change that. Or
change your hair.
Change your hair looks terrible up. You should try wearing it down the next time you're on stage. And then you're thinking, okay, well, I don't really know this person, but does it look that bad? Am I doing that terrible? Should I do anything? But after going through all of those, I, as a contestant, see those as pet peeves. But I'm grateful that you taught me stick to the plan and don't listen to unsolicited advice unless it comes from someone in your trusted circle, the people that you know have your best interest at heart. Leave it.
Well, the way I feel about that is you get one shot at what you're doing. If you've spent the money to get ready, if you've gotten the coaching, if you have the wardrobe, if you're 100% comfortable in who you are, the backstage staff at any pageant should respect you came prepared. And like you said, everybody has an opinion, but that necessarily when you're about to go on stage isn't the time for somebody to maybe express that opinion. And I guess it's a pet peeve for me because I've had girls on the phone melting down because they're like, oh, well, I was at rehearsal today and someone who plugs in things for the lights told me that they didn't like my lipstick color. And I'm like, well, they should stay in their lane and plug in lights is what they should do.
Yes.
And not worry about what color your lipstick is. I also tell girls, you don't want to fall on your own sword by listening to people who don't know anything about you. And if you don't win, you want to know that maybe you weren't a favorite of the judges, but you were doing what was best for you. You could be winning and make some subtle change that somebody recommended that took you straight out.
Exactly.
So the pet peeve is not taking solicited advice backstage. Unsolicited advice.
Yes.
Or getting in your own head.
Yes.
That's another one. So let's talk about, the one thing I do want to mention today is we're going to talk about pet peeves that maybe it's something that as a coach that I think is a pet peeve of mine. I've listened to the girls talk in class, things that are pet peeves of theirs. We've both judged things that are pet peeves when you're a judge, so we may hop around a little bit. But when it comes to me watching a pageant, one of my number one pet peeves is girls' toes hanging off the front of their shoes.
You are so funny about feet.
I can't stand it. Well, first of all, feet, it's not that I have an issue with feet, but they should remain in your shoes. And I'm not talking like just the top of your toe hanging off the front of your shoe. I'm talking they're walking out in swimsuit and this is what's hanging on. They look like koala bears hanging onto a branch on the front of their shoes. And you're like, and then once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then what makes it even worse is you just paid $6,000 for this gown to be at this national pageant, but you couldn't buy a $12 pair of shoe pads to keep your feet in your shoes.
And all people can see
are your feet.
Are that.
Especially if you have these dresses, right now splits are the trend, these splits that, and you should have on a pretty pair of shoes. But that's a pet peeve of mine is I just think that, and I don't know who you blame for that. I mean, as a pageant coach, I try to make sure that I monitor that with every client. But I literally saw that happen at Miss America this year. And I was like, how did this girl get this far?
And nobody said anything?
Yeah, I mean, so is that a coaching issue? Is that your family's issue? But I guess if you're at Miss America, you're an adult. Could you not look in the mirror and see that your toes are hanging out the front of your shoes? And we've always had that problem with you. You had narrow feet. So it wasn't always easy for your feet to stay in. But I mean, we have used carpet tape to keep your feet in
Painter's
shoes.
tape, carpet tape.
Spray glue.
Spray glue. We use the little shoe pads that you put in there.
Amazon
Suede.
makes a great, I don't know if I should say Amazon, but Amazon has a great shoe pad that the girls can use where the whole bottom of the shoe pad is adhesive, so it stays in place. It's not just that little dot so it spins all around. So,
Nice.
which kind of brings me, so while we're on feet, it also brings me to a second pet peeve of mine is I don't know when we normalized high heels being 6 inches with this big platform on the front. I think it was something that maybe started 10 years ago and then it just got out of hand.
Yes.
Where they kept making the shoes bigger and bigger and bigger and they just ended up looking like
Clunky.
looking like cartoon shoes.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
and it's just a pet peeve of mine. To me, I'm not one of those that gets caught up in somebody's height. Obviously, if someone's petite or short, they want to look taller. But at the end of the day, I'm more, are you proportioned for your height? Do you look
Right.
good in what you have on? I'm not worried about whether you're 5'2" or 6'2". But I don't like when girls wear overly exaggerated shoes. One, I think it hampers the way they walk. Number two, I think it's very distracting.
I was just going to say, your eyes are immediately drawn to that on stage and not them.
And it's just kind of unnecessary. And I don't think it's natural, where pageants, you're trying to create an environment where girls are in a glamorous way trying to present themselves
Right.
as naturally as possible. Well, I don't know how you can do that in a platform that's like this
And
big.
stilts.
Yeah. But that's kind of a pet peeve of mine because I see a really pretty girl. I'm like, you don't really need that. I'm
Right.
like, why did you, who chose that for you? I can probably tolerate it less if the gown goes all the way to the floor and you just
can't see them.
and you can't see it.
Right.
But I do applaud Miss America, the Miss America program this year, because they did away with the platform shoes. I don't know what the exact rule is, but I know when we were working with our teen that went to America's Teen, she had told me that they couldn't have platform shoes. They could have you could have a stiletto.
Sure.
But it couldn't have more than like a 1-inch platform.
And I think the 1 inch is good because it does make it just a tiny bit more comfortable, but
And it
having
makes
like
it
the
fair.
fishbowl.
Like when you
bottom is not
competed,
good.
for Miss USA, a sponsor gave you shoes. I remember in
Yes.
swimsuit, everybody had a 3-inch heel with no platform.
We were all the same.
Yeah, everybody was in the same
were pretty.
shoe. Yeah, and they were pretty. And yeah, it didn't make people taller, but it also didn't make people look awkward on stage. So that's it. So, maybe when you're trying to put together your wardrobe and you're trying to present yourself, maybe just realize you're enough just being who you are without having to add something that takes away to try to make you appear to be something you're not. Because at the end of the day, they can crown you in a 6 foot, 9 foot platform, but one day you're going to take that off and
Not gonna be that.
You're going to be 5'2" again.
Yes.
So I definitely think you should compete being more of who you are. So I applaud any pageant that's kind of. I'm not saying get rid of heels by any means, but
Right.
I'm just saying we need to scale it back to where it just seems more logical or normal and
Yes.
pretty on stage.
Absolutely.
Okay, what's another one of yours?
There's not really anything that stands out.
I know one that I like that we always talk about. You have beautiful teeth, and your teeth have always been white. And that's going to be another episode. We're actually going to invite somebody who is qualified to help give girls advice on how they can put their best smile forward. But what I did want to say is, I think your teeth can be any shade you want them to be, but I have a pet peeve that if you're wearing a white dress,
Your teeth got
your teeth have got to be white. Or it magnifies it. Our makeup artist told me one time, he said, if a girl has a white dress and her teeth aren't white, they can wear all the red lipstick they want to try to make them appear whiter, but it just isn't going to work. And now that, so many pageants are streamed and everything's in, high definition, it's going to show you for exactly what you are. And there's so many affordable ways now to to have your teeth
Yes.
whiter. So I think it's a pet peeve of mine if I see a girl in a white dress and their teeth aren't white. That's why you see so many advertisements in bridal ads for whitening your teeth if you're a bride, because you want your teeth to be the whitest they can be when you're standing up in front of everybody in that white dress.
Absolutely.
So, what is a pet peeve that you have found, Amanda, like being, other than somebody giving you unsolicited advice, what's another from a contestant's point of view that has been something that bothers you when you actually were competing in a pageant?
For the most part, I've had some really great judges and judges that I have kept in touch with who have become good friends afterwards. But I have had some friends who have competed who have had judges just kind of say some awkward things to them during the interview process, and also approaching them after the pageant. I did have that happen when I was younger. Do you remember that? The judge came up to me. Now, granted, it was something that I did need to hear, but I would much rather have preferred that in my feedback that this pageant offered. That's another thing, when pageants don't offer feedback. I think that all the hard work that you put into it, win, lose, or draw, I think it's great knowing what you grew in and what you could change. So not offering the feedback and then the judges giving the feedback, but immediately when you walk off stage. I think, especially if you didn't place or if you didn't win, I don't think that's the time.
Well, the last thing you want at that moment is to be, that's why it's a pet peeve.
Feel worse.
Nobody wants to hear especially, well, two things. If you did win, you don't want to immediately hear everything you did wrong.
Right.
And if you didn't win, you don't want to immediately hear everything you did wrong. You were correct about, I think we should give some examples of judges, in my opinion, saying awkward things in interview. We had a teen one time, and she came out of interview and she looked puzzled on her face. I said, well, how did your interview go? And she said, well, it went great. And the judge was from out of state. And I said, okay. And I said, then why are you acting weird? She said, well, he looked at me and he goes, you look just like my ex-wife. And I thought,
thank you.
Okay, well, first of all, I think that's an inappropriate comment in a interview, period. But this was a 17-year-old girl. You know, I don't know. I think judges get nervous also.
Yes.
But also I think if you're being asked to be a judge, I think you know what the realm of what is appropriate
and not appropriate.
Not appropriate. The other thing that it's a pet peeve of mine also is when a girl is on stage and they didn't win, and then one of the judges comes up and immediately goes, oh, you were my pick. I just want you to know you were my pick. Okay, well, first of all, there were 5 of you. So you've got to come together that regardless of who the winner is, as a group, you need to agree that, okay, as a group, this is who we picked.
Right.
It doesn't do any girl any good to hear when they don't win that you are a judge's pick. Yeah, judges are going to have favorites, but at the end of the day, you're hoping the girl that's the best fit for that pageant or that brand, consistent across the board, is that win. So it's a pet peeve of mine when girls come back to me and they go, oh, well, you know, the judge on the end came up to me and said that I was their pick all along. They don't know what happened. Because what happened was the other judges didn't pick you. There was nothing necessarily shady going on with the pageant. You have to understand there's 5 people there trying to make the best decision for this organization. But I do think that it's judges just need to be, I guess I look at it this way. If you're a judge and you had a kid or a young adult in one of these pageants, would you want somebody approaching them saying things like to them where they create all that doubt?
There's a time and a place for that, and it's not right there.
I mean, and that's just what it is. And you also hit on the part about it is kind of a pet peeve, especially as the pageants get bigger and the stakes get higher. And what I mean by, you can pretty much be in a middle school or high school pageant and keep within your budget. But when you want to go to Miss USA or you want to go to Miss Earth or you want to go to Miss United States, you're investing thousands of dollars in this hobby on the risk or the bet that you can parlay it either into a win or into something else. I don't understand when pageants go, we don't give scores and we don't give feedback. That just makes no sense to me. I can understand if you don't want to give scores. I can
Right.
understand that, because then that allows contestants to compare scores. But I think it should always be a requirement on behalf of the judges to have to give some kind
At
of.
least something you're doing right, something that you could continue to improve upon.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I think also another thing, this one seems trivial after the things that we've been talking about, but I think nail polish and manicures and pedicures are a pet peeve of mine.
Me
I'm back to the
too.
feet again. I'm back to the feet again. But when a girl comes into interview and she has on a great outfit and she has bubble bath nails and then red toenails, I'm like, how did we come to this? How do we come to this decision?
Well, hopefully, if she's working with you, she wouldn't be an interview to see. He does not like toes to show in interview. I don't have a problem with
I
it.
don't.
As long as the claws are not coming
Yeah.
out. I don't mind an open toe shoe in interview, but this one is very
I just think you should,
adamant
and maybe,
about
okay,
no.
maybe I am old school, and there are a lot of designers out there that make really pretty closed-toed shoes now.
Yes.
But I think when you go into an interview, you should be checking a box that doesn't draw attention to anything but your face, maybe your hands, and what you're
Keeping the attention here, absolutely.
But when a girl walks in and they're in this little skinny heel with a little strap across the front, and all I can see is this little piggy went to market, this little piggy stayed home, this little piggy had roast beef, and this little piggy should have wore a closed-toed shoe.
And this little piggy has neon yellow
Has neon yellow.
toenails.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and then the other thing is too, I tell girls, I am not the end all, but I will certainly share my 30 years of experience with people and what I've heard. And I judged a national pageant where we were picking a girl to go to an international pageant. This girl came in, I won't say what state it was, but she was fabulous. She was beautiful. She had on a great dress, but she had on a strappy shoe where you could see her toes, but she had a great manicure and pedicure. And it was like an 8-minute interview. Y'all, this girl, she could speak 4 languages. She had 2 degrees. She knew all about NASA and everything. I was like, this girl, just based on interview, haven't seen you on stage yet. You're definitely on my radar. And she gave what I thought, in my experience, was a dynamic interview. And when she walked out, one of the judges felt the need to go, all I could look at was her feet. I'm like, the girl speaks 4 languages and has 2 degrees. They
We
go,
can
yeah,
change the
but they were,
shoes."
yes. But then again, that's why I like to tell my clients, just wear a closed-toed shoe
Sure.
and just take that risk off the table.
Right.
Because if you're at a pageant that big and you have a judge that's qualified to look at you and you have all these credentials and all they could say about you when you walked out of interview was, I couldn't get past their feet, then that's something that is definitely we have to look at. But aside from that situation where that would make me want to wear closed-toed shoes, I just think you should wear closed-toed shoes to interview. I mean, can we normalize that? Can we make that a law in pageant land?
Pageant law.
Or a pageant law? Maybe that's what we should do, is start making pageant laws. The 10 Commandments of pageantry. Do not wear open-toed shoes.
to interview.
All right, let's see what else we have on here. Oh, this one's a big one. And I know I've said this several times today. There will be another podcast that will go deeper into this. But for me personally, I absolutely am so disappointed when a girl walks into interview and they look nothing like the photo that they have given us.
Now, it's great if the girl has an average photo and she walks in and you're like, oh my,
Yeah,
wow,
she's
she's gorgeous.
yeah.
This photo does not do her justice, but if she walks
Now we're
in,
but we're in a culture now where I don't know, girl. I don't know whether it's the photographer. I don't really know where the root of the problem is, whether it's what the photographers are wanting to do or what it's the clients are wanting to do. But we try to encourage our girls, please send a photo that looks like you. Because what we're getting is extremely over-edited photos, and this is what people don't understand. You can listen, we all want great pictures of themselves.
Right.
I have all kinds of apps and filters. But when because I'm still with an agency, but when I go to a go-see for a commercial audition or I go to audition for anything, I take my basic headshot. I would
Right.
never take a picture in there that I couldn't live up to in person.
Mm-hmm.
But what I see happening now is you take a girl, let's say that we have a girl and that on a facial scale, she's a 10 plus plus plus. Then you take a photographer who photographs her and over edits her photo, and now she's a 10 out of the stratosphere. no matter how gorgeous that 10 plus 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 is, you're disappointed when she walks in and looks nothing like the photo that they've put in there.
Right.
That's a huge pet peeve of mine. I think when girls invest in photographers, you really need to look at a photographer's work and know that they can give you a great, it's okay to be edited, but not edited into another person.
And maybe be a part of the editing process.
I always laugh. This is always my laugh because, I mean, of course, we follow all things pageantry on social media, but I love when a deadline passes. And there's always some girl who will post on there, now that the deadline has passed, presenting my new headshot. And girl, your new head. You look nothing like you look nothing like
Who is
that.
her?
Who is that?
Do we know she?
But like I said, it's okay to have pictures that don't look like you, but it is not okay to submit a picture that doesn't look like you when you're actually going to have to meet these people in person. Submit
Yes.
those over the top photos to like photo competitions.
Right.
So, is
Or
what I
for
would
if
do.
they have a specific photogenic, which a lot of pageants
Do.
do, have that's completely separate.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So those are some of our pet peeves today. Down the road, we hope to allow you to share some of your pet peeves with us, and we will delve into those
Can't wait.
and continue the pageant pet peeve process, and also maybe help you not to do things that are a pet peeve. All right, so that wraps up this episode of Pageant Pet Peeves. We hope you've enjoyed hearing some of what we consider pet peeves in the pageant industry, and maybe some suggestions on how to correct those pet peeves. But if you would like to share with us your pet peeve, please post in the comments, and maybe your pet peeve will show up on one of our future episodes. But for today's episode, this is Cyrus.
And Amanda, and remember, it's a world of beauty and a universe of possibilities.